American Princesses from the 1800s. Thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Many little girls dream of becoming a princess. But since the US doesn't officially have a royal family, that dream can never come true for us American girls, right? In fact, almost since the beginning of our nation, American women have been tying the knot with foreign princes, including a Baltimore belle who married a Bonaparte, a New Orleans heiress who became Princess of Monaco before Grace Kelly, and a president's granddaughter who fled the Russian Revolution with her royal beau. I've already made episodes on the American princesses of the 20th and 21st centuries. But today, let's look even further back in time and meet 7 American women from the 19th century who became princesses. Elizabeth Patterson was born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1785. Her father immigrated from Ireland before the Revolution and became the second wealthiest man in the state by the time his 13th child was born. Eldest daughter Elizabeth was one of the most beautiful debutantes in Baltimore and caused a stir with her risque French fashions. But she also had brains and was particularly fond of Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Women. In 1803, she made the acquaintance of a particularly interesting visitor. Jérôme was the youngest of 8 Bonaparte siblings. He was just a teenager when his brother Napoleon rose to power in revolutionary France. Jérôme had little memory of poverty and grew up spoiled and willful. He joined the Navy, but preferential treatment made him a poor officer. While serving in the Caribbean, he fired on a friendly vessel, then fled to the U.S. to avoid consequences. While attending a dinner party, the 19-year-old prince was beguiled by 18-year-old Bessie, the belle of Baltimore. Her father received an anonymous letter warning him that Jérôme was a ne'er-do-well. But Elizabeth threatened to elope if her father did not bless the union. The couple wed on Christmas Eve. They honeymooned in Washington, D.C., where the young bride's backless sheer white dress scandalized D.C. society. One pearl clutcher remarked, "You could see the color and shape of her thighs and even more." Back in France, the emperor was arranging a political marriage for his youngest brother. When he learned that the boy had already married without his permission, he was furious. Elizabeth was soon pregnant, and the couple set sail for Europe. In Portugal, they received word that Napoleon had ordered Jérôme to meet him in Italy alone or be arrested. He kissed his wife goodbye and promised to persuade his brother to accept her. From the road, he sent her hastily scribbled notes, promising that they would be reunited soon. Meanwhile, she received a letter from Napoleon, offering a generous payoff if she would leave Europe and stop using the name Bonaparte. She sailed for France, hoping that her child could be born on French soil, but Napoleon ordered all French ports to reject her ship. Elizabeth was forced to land in England, where she gave birth to a son, Jérôme Napoleon Bonaparte. She sent word to her husband, but once he had reached his brother, Napoleon won the argument. He threatened to disinherit and court-martial Jérôme if he didn't give Betsy up, and he caved. He did send a box full of letters, presents, and cash to his wife and infant son. She returned to Baltimore, heartbroken. As time wore on, Jérôme's letters became shorter, and instead of signing off, "Your loving husband," he wrote J. Bonaparte. 16 months after their kiss goodbye, the letters stopped. Elizabeth received word that her marriage had been annulled by the French government, and read in the newspaper that Napoleon had carved off a chunk of the Holy Roman Empire, called it Westphalia, and made Jérôme king. He also ordered him to marry Princess Katharina of Württemberg, and the couple had 3 children. Jérôme soon took a mistress who looked eerily similar to Betsy. He had no political acumen and spent boatloads of money renovating his palaces, building a theater, and commissioning stately portraits of himself. Jérôme requested that his ex-wife send their son, Baux, to him, but she refused. She instead petitioned Napoleon to pay her child support, and he agreed. Jérôme was insulted, but Betsy wrote to him, "I would rather be sheltered under the wings of an eagle than dangled from the beak of a goose." Teenage Baux did eventually visit his father, but he was disgusted by his papa's reckless spending. His aunt Pauline tried to arrange a marriage with his first cousin, Charlotte Bonaparte, but Baux was happy to return to his mother in the U.S. In 1813, Jérôme lost the throne of Westphalia during his brother's disastrous campaign in Russia. He fought at the Battle of Waterloo, but after Napoleon's final defeat, Jérôme and his family fled to Italy, where they lived at the pleasure of his father-in-law. While visiting a gallery in Florence, he spotted Elizabeth, who was enjoying a grand tour of Europe. Jérôme, now in his 40s, was tired and out of shape. They didn't speak, but Jérôme whispered to Katerina that the still stunning woman over there was his American wife. He died in 1860, age 75. Elizabeth lived to 1879, age 94. Her grandson, Charles Joseph Bonaparte, served as U.S. Attorney General under President Theodore Roosevelt. In 1908, he founded what would later become the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Catherine Willis Gray was born in 1803 on a plantation near Fredericksburg, Virginia. She was a great-granddaughter of Elizabeth Washington Lewis, President George Washington's only surviving sister. Catherine's father spent his time fox hunting, racing, and attending parties. He neglected the plantation and squandered the family fortune. At 16, Catherine made an advantageous marriage to Atchison Gray, but her groom died of malaria months after the wedding. She gave birth to a baby, but it also died. The impoverished widow had no choice but to follow her parents to the territory of Florida, where her father could stretch his dwindling fortune a bit further. There she was introduced to Prince Achille Murat. He was the eldest son of Caroline Bonaparte, Napoleon's youngest sister. She had fallen in love with one of her brother's generals, Joachim Murat, and the emperor gifted the couple the throne of Naples. Caroline raised her 4 children in Mediterranean splendor. She renovated the palace, patronized arts, and went on archaeological digs in Pompeii. But when Napoleon was defeated, Joachim was arrested and executed by firing squad. Caroline and her children fled to Austria. When Achille turned 21, he immigrated to the United States, where he hoped to build a new life. He toured the country incognito, but he bore a striking resemblance to his famous uncle, so no one was fooled. He purchased a large plantation east of Tallahassee, Florida, and named it Lipona, an anagram of Napoli, the kingdom he had once expected to inherit. There he grew oranges, sugarcane, cotton, and tobacco, with slave labor. An eccentric, he devised a method of escaping the Florida heat by sitting nude in a creek, in a submergible chair, with a mosquito net over his head. He was obsessed with the, quote, eatability of the whole animal tribe. He enjoyed baked turkey buzzard, boiled owl, roasted crow, stewed alligator, lizard, and rattlesnake. He also refused to bath, change his clothes, or wash his feet. And he slept on a mattress stuffed with Spanish moss. Though his neighbors thought him strange, he was still a wealthy prince and was welcomed in the finest ballrooms. In 1826, he married Catherine Gray. She must not have been put off by his dirty feet, but they never did have children. Together, the exiled prince and princess toured Europe. They were in Westminster Abbey for the coronation of William IV in 1831. Achille died in 1847, and Catherine inherited Lipona. In 1852, her late husband's first cousin, Napoleon III, became Emperor of France. He granted Catherine an annuity from the French government. She was involved in the U.S.'s first successful historic preservation project, restoring Mount Vernon, the home of her great-granduncle, George Washington. Catherine died in 1867, age 63, and was buried in Tallahassee. Step over Grace Kelly, the first American woman to become Princess of Monaco, was Alice Heine. She was born in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1857 into a prominent Jewish and French banking family. Alice spent her early years on Rue Royale in the French Quarter, where her family shared 3 interconnected mansions. When she was 4, the Civil War broke out, and the family fled to France. Her father helped finance Napoleon III's war with Prussia. The Heine family frequently attended court, and Empress Eugenie became little Alice's godmother. Imperial favor made the American heiress quite a catch. Just after her 17th birthday, she married Armand Chapelle du Jumillac, Duke of Richelieu, 10 years her senior. This was a big social step up for the nouveau riche family. But her husband died while on a trip to Greece. 22-year-old Alice was widowed with 2 small children. However, she had already met husband number 2, Albert, hereditary Prince of Monaco, while on a trip to Madeira with her husband. Sparks flew, but he was in an unhappy marriage with Scottish heiress Lady Mary Victoria Douglas Hamilton. When Alice suddenly became single, the prince fast-tracked an annulment, and the pair began a relationship. His religious father, Charles III, was outraged at the prospect of his heir marrying a Jewish woman. Albert and Alice remained together in secret for 9 years. In 1889, his father died. He became sovereign prince, and the couple finally wed. Theirs is considered one of the first royal love matches in Monaco. The Grimaldis are infamous for their unhappy marriages. Check out my episode about it. The couple shared a love of oceanography and started off on the right foot. Alice was highly cultured. She used profits from Monte Carlo Casino to open an opera house, theater, and ballet. She made Monaco one of Europe's great cultural centers and drew thousands of tourists. But as Albert spent more time at sea and Alice at the opera, they grew apart. He was frequently seen with courtesans, including famous Spanish dancer Caroline Otero. Alice banned the mistress from Monaco. Meanwhile, she was having an affair with composer Isidore de Lora. The prince and princess had a screaming match at the Theater of Monte Carlo in front of a packed house of high society guests. Albert accused Alice of cheating and slapped her. She promptly left Monaco. The couple legally separated in 1902, but remained married. Alice was a regular at the famous salons of Belle Époque Paris and befriended Sarah Bernhardt, Oscar Wilde, and Queen Alexandra of the UK. She was a muse to novelist Marcel Proust. One writer remarked, "Her American ancestry bequeaths her with great beauty and immense charm." Albert died in 1922, and Alice became Dowager Princess of Monaco, though the people of the micronation had mixed feelings about their prodigal princess. Alice died in Paris in 1925, age 68. The one upside to not being a 19th century princess is that I can take my tunes on the go while I'm traveling, enjoying nature, or doing chores around the house. So I'm loving my Raycon earbuds. They are super comfortable and lightweight. They sit just outside your ear canal, so you get really clear sound, but you can actually hear what's going on around you. The ear hook part rotates, so they actually stay in. The sound quality is just as good as the more expensive brands at half the price. So whether I'm hearing a princess power ballad or quiet dialogue, it's clear as a bell. Plus, Raycon can connect to multiple devices and switch seamlessly without hassle. And my earbuds have 8 hours of playtime and 36 hours of battery with the charging case. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/historyteatimeopen to get 20% off the Essential Open earbuds. Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Winnaretta Singer was born in 1865 in Yonkers, New York. Her father, Isaac Singer, was founder of the Singer Sewing Machine Company. He also founded families with no less than 5 different women, fathering a total of at least 24 children. When wife number 2 found out about wife number 3, he was arrested for bigamy, but his considerable wealth got him out of trouble. Winnaretta was one of 6 children born to wife number 5, French-American model Isabelle Boyer. After the Civil War, Isaac moved with this family to England. He built a 115-room palace in Devon and hobnobbed with the upper crust. He died when Winnaretta was 10. Her mother moved to Paris and married a violinist. Winnaretta was abused by her stepfather. As soon as she turned 18, she seized control of her $1 million inheritance and moved out on her own. Her close friends were well aware that she was a lesbian, but at 22, she gave in to social pressure and accepted the proposal of Comte Louis de Montbéliard. On their wedding night, she climbed atop an armoire and threatened to kill her groom if he came near her. Their marriage was annulled after 5 years. Winnaretta never concealed her many affairs. She had romances with painter Romain Brooks, secret daughter of Edward VII, Olga de Mere, composer Ethel Smythe, pianist Renata Borgatti, novelist Violet Trefusis, and writer Virginia Woolf. The disgruntled husband of one of her lovers once stood outside her Venetian palazzo and shouted, "If you are half the man I think you are, you will come out here and fight me." At 28, Winnaretta and her good friend, 59-year-old Prince Edmond de Polignac, agreed to a lavender marriage. Edmond was gay, and the arrangement allowed them both to conduct affairs with whomever they wanted, with less social scrutiny. The pair did share genuine platonic love, mutual respect, and artistic understanding. In 1894, the Prince and Princess du Polignac established a salon in their Parisian mansion. It became a haven for avant-garde music and hosted composers including Debussy and Ravel. Alice Heine was a frequent attendant. Prince Edmund died in 1901. Winnaretta commissioned several works by young composers in his honor. She was a talented painter and was exhibited at the Chicago World's Fair. Winnaretta developed thousands of units of public housing for the poor and homeless of Paris. During World War I, she worked with Marie Curie to convert private limousines into mobile radiology units to help wounded soldiers. And she partnered with Consuelo Vanderbilt to construct a hospital for the poor. Winnaretta died in 1943, age 78, with her longtime love, Alvilde Lise Milne, by her side. Julia Grant was born in the White House in 1876, while her grandfather, Civil War General Ulysses S. Grant, was serving as president. Julia was named in honor of her grandmother, the First Lady. She spent a great deal of time with her quiet and gentle grandfather. She later recounted, "He always took me seriously. I felt inclined to live up to my position as his companion. He held my pudgy, dimpled hand in the palm of his, and we learned to count fingers and dimples together." The former president died when Julie was 9. In 1889, her father was appointed U.S. Minister to Austria-Hungary. Julia made her formal debut at the court of Empress Elizabeth. When she was 16, her aunt, Bertha, took her on a tour of Europe. Bertha was representing the board of lady managers of the Chicago World's Fair and was on a mission to collect art for the exposition. While in Rome, Julia met Prince Mikhail Cantacuzene, who was attached to the Russian embassy. He was a member of an ancient aristocratic family with origins in the Byzantine Empire and a long history of service at the Romanov imperial court. Julia and Mikhail felt an instant connection. When she left for Cannes, he managed to get a transfer so he could follow her. 2 weeks later, they were engaged. The couple wed in Newport, Rhode Island, in an evening Russian Orthodox ceremony, followed the next morning by an Episcopal church wedding. They took up residence in St. Petersburg and had 3 children. During World War I, Mikhail served as aide de camp to Tsar Nikolai II and later as a general. After the war came the revolution. In 1917, the family sewed their jewels into their clothing and fled Russia. They managed to cross the border into Finland, then took a ship to the United States. They were taken in by Julia's aunt, Bertha, and resettled in Sarasota, Florida. Julia wrote several articles and books about her life in Russia, the war, and the revolution. She and Mikhail divorced in 1934, and she moved back to Washington. She was a founder of the Soulgrave Club, a prestigious private women's social club. She lived to the age of 99 and was buried at the National Cathedral in 1975. Noni Mae Stewart was born in 1878 in Zanesville, Ohio. Her father was a wealthy merchant, and her mother's kin owned silver mines. Mae was educated at home until 17. Then she was sent to Miss Porter's School for Young Ladies. She was promptly introduced into society and married off to George Ely Worthington. They lived together for 4 years but had no children. In 1899, their union was annulled on the grounds that it had been contracted under false pretenses, and while Mae was underage. In 1900, she married William Bateman Leeds, known as America's Tin King. He was 17 years her senior. They had 1 son together. While her husband made his fortune in cheap metals, Mae loved precious stones. On a trip to Paris, she purchased a $360,000 pearl necklace. The U.S. government had a 60% tariff on imported jewelry, but only a 10% fee on loose stones. This led to a highly publicized case over which amount Mrs. Leeds owed. King Edward VII sent a note to Mae that he would be flattered by the favor of seeing her famous pearls. Mr. Leeds died in Paris in 1908. Leaving Mae a fortune of $35 million. Now a wealthy widow, she socialized with European aristocracy, collected valuable art, furniture, and a lot more jewelry. Cartier named a hall in his famous jewelry store after her. She met Prince Christopher of Greece and Denmark, the youngest son of King George I of Greece, and an uncle to Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Years later, he addressed the persistent rumors that he had married Mae for her money. The truth is, I met Mrs. Leeds, who was 4 years my senior, and we fell in love, eventually resolving to marry for no other reason. But in reality, Mae was actually 10 years older than Christopher. Their wedding was delayed because his family had reservations about the prince marrying an American commoner divorcee. But after World War I, the Greek throne was abolished, and the royal family was pushed into exile. Suddenly, Prince Christopher looked like the smart one. Though he was now a prince without a country, Mae married him anyway. She converted and took the Greek Orthodox name Anastasia, though the U.S. press continued to call her the Tin Plate Princess. Her 19-year-old son, William, married Christopher's 18-year-old niece, Princess Xenia of Russia. Shortly after her royal marriage, Anastasia was diagnosed with cancer. She died 3 years later, in 1923, age 45. She was buried with her parents in Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. Anita Rhinelander Stewart was born in New Jersey in 1886. Her parents were descendants of old Knickerbocker families, and her father of King James I of Scotland. Her mother, Annie, was one of the most beautiful and popular hostesses in New York. In 1906, the couple divorced. Annie took her 20-year-old daughter, Anita, to London to land them both new husbands. Mama walked down the aisle first with a stockbroker. The pair took off on a world tour, but her groom died of a heart condition in Japan, and Annie inherited $3 million. He also left $500,000 in railroad stock to his stepdaughter. With this added to the $1 million dowry from her father, Anita drew ample attention on the marriage market. She first met Prince Miguel of Braganza, Duke of Viseu, in Paris in April 1909. Back in 1826, his grandfather Miguel I usurped the throne of Portugal from his niece, Queen Maria II. A bloody civil war ensued, but when his brother, Emperor Pedro of Brazil, came back to Europe to enforce his daughter's claim, Miguel was defeated and exiled. He settled in Germany and married a princess. His only son, Miguel of Braganza, married Princess Elizabeth of Thurn und Taxis, a niece of Empress Elizabeth of Austria. The eldest of their 3 sons was Prince Miguel, Duke of Viseu. Though he was a Portuguese prince, he was not allowed back in his home country, and he served as an officer of the Austrian army. In Lisbon, King Carlos had grown unpopular. Miguel of Braganza gave several interviews criticizing his cousin and declaring that he would be happy to return to Portugal and take the throne. His harsh words are believed to have contributed to what happened next. On February 1st, 1908, King Carlos, Queen Amélie, and their 2 sons were riding through Lisbon in an open carriage. 2 Republicans fired 5 shots at the royals, killing the king instantly and wounding Prince Louis in the chest and Prince Manuel in the arm. The assassins were killed on the spot, and the royal carriage rushed away. 20 minutes later, Prince Louis died. Had automatic accession been the law in Portugal, he would have been king for the 20 minutes he outlived his father. Instead, his brother was declared King Manuel II a few days later. The crowned heads of Europe were horrified and blamed Miguel of Braganza for inciting the tragedy. He and his sons were forced out of the Austrian army. With little left but his royal name, Prince Miguel, Duke of Viseu, headed for Paris, where a new crop of American dollar princesses were looking to trade daddy's cash for ancient European titles. Miguel courted several rich young ladies, but when he met Anita, he was instantly smitten. He followed her to London, and their engagement was announced at a concert dance hosted by her mother, who had rented the Duchess of Somerset's Berkeley Square house for the season. The New York Times recorded Mrs. Smith received her guests in black, wearing a superb string of pearls, while Miss Stewart wore a shimmering gown of pink chiffon over cloth of silver. Miguel's family still looked down their noses at Anita's and suggested a morganatic marriage, but she refused to settle for that. She impressed Emperor Franz Joseph, and he bestowed upon her the title Princess of Braganza in her own right, so Miguel would not have to renounce his claim to the Portuguese throne to marry her. A few days before the wedding, Miguel gave a luncheon at Claridge's Hotel for his bride-to-be. He mentioned to Anita that she would be converting to Roman Catholicism. She was outraged and nearly called off the wedding, but her mother settled the matter by paying off Miguel's massive debts. Annie was too deep in preparations to see things fall apart now. Finally, the big day arrived. Anita rode to the church in Dingwall, Scotland, down a road decorated with American, Portuguese, and Austrian flags, and lined with well-wishers. This was the first royal wedding in Scotland since Mary, Queen of Scots, in 1565, and public excitement was sparked. The church was converted into a grotto with arrangements of evergreens, simlacs, palms, and white lilies. The choir was decorated with the Braganza colors, ruby and blue. Anita wore a long train of snow-white chiffon over soft satin, embellished with embroidery in white silk and tiny pearls, made up of sprays of heather, fleur-de-lis, and Portuguese devices. Her lace veil was held in place by a wreath of heather and orange blossoms, framing a feather cluster of diamonds and sapphires, a gift from her groom which had belonged to the Braganza royal family for 200 years. After a luxurious wedding breakfast at Tulloch Castle, the couple embarked on a honeymoon tour of Europe. They settled in with Annie in London until she got tired of funding her son-in-law's reckless spending. She was eager to embark on her own romance with a handsome, fortune-hunting con man who was a decade her junior. Edward de Sancerre claimed to be a European aristocrat. He used a fake accent, which often changed. His real name was Jean Harold, and he was from Waco, Texas. The pair partied their way across California until Annie died at 61. Edward inherited 1/3 of her estate and moved on to victimize the widow of the governor of Hawaii. Back in England, Anita gave birth to 3 children. When World War I broke out, the family, who held Austrian citizenship, were forced to flee to Switzerland. Miguel abandoned them to join the German army. Anita took her 3 children to New York, where she was welcomed by her father. After the war, Miguel eventually returned to her. Now impoverished, he was hired as an insurance salesman at her brother's firm. In 1923, he fell ill with influenza and died at 44. Anita maintained friendships with her royal in-laws, all of whom lost their thrones after the war. But in order to regain her U.S. citizenship, she had to renounce her royal titles. High society continued to call her princess. At 60, she married 64-year-old Louis Morris. They divided their time between Malbone Castle in Newport and their Park Avenue mansion. Anita opened a photography studio in Manhattan and enjoyed the art scene. She lived to the age of 91 and was buried in Newport in 1977. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and check out my other history videos. You can also support my work, get early access to all my multi-part series, and other perks by becoming a channel member or joining my Patreon. Thank you for watching.